regardless of whether or not Israel is the same Israel as in the past, that's not even the point at this point. Read the Hamas charter.
So I was just wondering, because I've heard a lot of it recently, especially with like the wars that are going on, about the Israel we have today that was declared in May 14th, 1948 as a country isn't the same Israel that God prophesied in the Bible. I was just wondering, like, what's your viewpoint on that?
I would ask them, why do they say that?
See, that's
like, when they make a claim, it's not your job to refute the claim. It's their job to support the claim.
Okay.
So why do you say?
I don't believe it, but like I'm just like confused on how the idea might have like come up, because it's prophesied that Israel would be declared a nation, but then we have believers that are saying that the Israel we have today isn't the Israel that was prophesied in the Bible.
I would ask them for evidence for that. Do you know there's been no people group in history that was out of their homeland for 1900 years and came back speaking the same language 1900 years later? Also, I think even if they were right, that wouldn't change the fact that given the current conflict between Hamas and between Israel, that we should be supporting Israel. This doesn't mean that everything Israel does is right. Even for those who say, well, we ought to bless Israel. Okay, well, what does bless mean? Does bless mean you always agree? No, you don't bless your kid by always agreeing with what they're doing, right? Bless means you tell them the truth because you care about them. Now, people will say, well, it's not the same Israel as it was. Yeah, it's the same. They're apostate. Because the Israel that was taken out in 722 by the Assyrians was also apostate. Do you know in the I think it's 19 kings in the northern kingdom of Israel, 0 of them were good kings. They were all apostate. And only a handful of the kings from Judah were good kings. So when people say, well, we ought not be supporting Israel at all because, they're not even Christians. Well, they weren't even following Yahweh in the Old Testament. That's what the Old Testament is about, right? Quit going after other gods or I'm going to judge you. They kept getting judged. In fact, this is one reason we know the Old Testament's telling the truth, as Dennis Prager famously said. He said, one of the main reasons I know the Old Testament's true is because no people group would ever invent such an embarrassing history of themselves. Who would make all this stuff up? We just got back from Egypt. We're going again here in a few weeks. We got back from Egypt in December. When you go to some of these Egyptian monuments, you know what they are? They're propaganda monuments to how great the Pharaoh it was, how great the Pharaoh is. They don't report anything negative. But when you read the Bible, you go, man, these people were really hard on themselves. This is called embarrassing testimony. Nobody admits embarrassing testimony, or they very rarely do. They try and hide embarrassing testimony because it is embarrassing, right? You might make stuff up to make yourself look good, but you're not going to make stuff up to make yourself look bad. Israel is telling the truth in the Old Testament about how evil they were. They're still evil now, but because we're all evil. But Hamas, these nations right now who are saying we want to recognize a Palestinian state, have they read the Hamas charter? Have you read the Hamas charter? Do you know what the Hamas charter says? All of these conferences to come up with a two-state solution are a waste of time. They don't want a two-state solution. They want a one-state solution. No Israel. They're the new Nazi party. They want to kill Jews. How do you negotiate with such a group? How do you reward such a group? Do you know what the Palestinian state is? Winston Churchill set it up after World War I. It's called Jordan. Jordan. The area around Israel, largely dominated by Muslim populations, is, I want to say, if I get the number right, I think it's about 177 times the size of Israel. And Israel needs to give up land? What? So I would have a conversation with these people and ask them, have you read the Hamas charter? Regardless of whether or not Israel is the same Israel as in the past, that's not even the point at this point. Read the Hamas charter.